Hello, welcome to another episode of Ouch Marmalade. Okay, today actually, in case this is just a preempt in case you don't hear me pronouncing my words properly or that I'm slurring, it's because I have a huge ass ulcer on my tongue. I will not show it to you guys because it's too disgusting. So first, we will have. Sorry, my double chin come on. I was not like that. Hi, Junho.
Hi.
What's up?
Oh, I
You
just
see my gross
recovered.
ulcer?
No, I'm not looking at ulcer. So disgusting.
I know, right?
Yeah,
Maybe
but
I
anyway, I
should.
just
Maybe I should
recovered.
show it
Okay,
to. Maybe I should show it. I have some live audience here.
okay.
I should show
Anyway,
it to.
I was just saying that I just recovered. I just tested negative
COVID.
from COVID. I mean, I COVID for the past 8 days. No, I don't know, 7 days. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
What? I mean, nowadays almost everybody is getting COVID. I mean, if you're not feeling well, you're always getting COVID.
I know it's like the latest Chanel accessory.
Yeah.
It's like the easy craze. The ugly easy shoes. Enough with the mask, with your face so dark. Hello, Douglas.
Yeah, I don't know what's he doing.
Take
I
off
don't
the
want to-
mask. It's not a
I don't want-
digital virus.
He's
Rachel,
still
I need to take him out.
social distancing
No, we're already socially distanced. We don't need
in
to
public.
virtually
When
distance.
we are
distant.
when we are indoors with other people, we need to mask up.
He is having brain fog. Okay, just ignore him. He's having
Okay,
brain
so
fog.
basically, excuse Douglas because he is suffering from COVID, and one of his most severe symptoms is brain fog, which explains the gibberish that he said earlier, and he's going to continue saying for the rest of today's episode. But hey, we're all humans only, right? Okay, let me just adjust my friend. Okay, so anyway, today we're going to talk about a very I should stop smiling because our topic today is quite depressing actually. By the end, you see me smiling by the end of today's episode, I guarantee you will not be smiling anymore. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a very sad and depressing topics, almost as sad and as depressing as when Amber Heard's dog stepped on the bee. Sorry, I don't quite know how to make the face. I try very long, I don't know how to make. I don't know how she make the face, but anyway, yeah, about as depressing as that. And it was so depressing and sad that when Rachel talked about it, she said that she would spend all her money and not leave any for tomorrow. And since I'm such a wonderful and generous friend, I've also offered to spend all her money for her at no additional cost with no service charge.
Me too.
You have your own money.
She can't spend it in the day by herself.
No, I cannot. I must go first. I'm the poorest out of all of y'all. Chunho, you go last, like you.
No, but must set the context. The context is $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. So I spent all the money today lah.
That's actually
Hang
one of
on.
the most ridiculous.
Suddenly I got brain.
I saw. I was waiting for you to figure it out.
I was like, huh? It's digital. This brain fog thing.
You know, this is.
I think what Rachel said is true to a certain extent. That $1 today is worth more than the dollar tomorrow. But to spend it today so that there's nothing left tomorrow is the most ridiculous things that I've ever heard. Okay, this is probably what our friend Angela said. I think money is to spend. When do I spend? Yeah, this is the time you're going to spend it. But
Now,
I still think it's the most ridiculous thing.
Now. When no, we
Other
always say
ways to
when
do-
is the best time to invest now? When
But
is
it
the best
actually
time to
makes
spend
sense.
Rachel's money now?
It actually makes sense to spend it today. Like if you have $3. No. Okay, once upon a time, if you have $3, you can buy a tray of eggs.
Yeah.
No?
Right? 10 eggs. And I think in the last few months, the same $3 will only buy 4 eggs. Correct, right? Because it's gone to that same tray. I think that tray. Okay, so it's the big. Okay, is this 60-gram big eggs, which used to cost about $2.65. But now for a tray of 10, and I think now it costs about $7 for the same tray of 10 eggs.
What?
The 265.
About I thought you were talking about the 30 eggs
No,
tray.
no, 10 eggs, 10 eggs,
I
10
tell you,
eggs.
what. The tray of 30 eggs used to cost about $3 something to $4. Now
Mm.
it costs about $6.70. These are not the big eggs,
Double.
these are the smaller eggs.
Yeah, I'm talking about big
tray of
eggs.
30 is already six. It has actually almost doubled.
So
price is already
the
doubled.
big eggs more than double, because it used to be almost $3 for the tray, but now it's like 7 plus, which is more than. Yeah, so you buy 4 eggs for the same $3. You buy 4 eggs. So if you eat eggs for your meals, right? If you eat eggs for your meals and your budget whatever your budget is, it means that for the same budget you're going to eat, you just have 40%. You just have 40% of the amount of food that you used to have for the same amount of money.
Yeah, but it's not
So
just for eggs, it's for everything else. It's for everything
No, I'm
else.
just using eggs as the
Yeah,
analogy, the example. Yeah. So
Eggs and eggs mother.
yeah. So and I mean, and the thing is, most of the food that we eat have got some form of egg ingredient in it, or if you look at breads and pastries, and okay, there's cakes will have eggs in it, jams will have eggs in it,
Everything is like
ice
there are
cream
two
will
things.
have eggs in it.
Yeah, there are two things that I believe in life. One is that butter makes everything taste better. Second is that eggs makes everything taste better.
The first is what? Sorry, the first
But anyway,
buttons. Do you say buttons?
butter makes everything taste better.
Oh, butter. Okay,
Butter.
buttons.
Anyway,
Yo.
to a certain extent,
Yo.
so based on that theory, to a certain extent, it makes sense, okay? Because if you, I don't know how I'm gonna share the chart, but if you think about it, the oil, the gas, and you go to the petrol kiosk and you buy any gasoline. I mean, a month ago, it's going to cost you cheaper to top up your car than now. So if you can, you should top up your car or top up tanks of petrol and store it. Now spend as much as you want, spend and then buy and then hog it and then hoard it, and then now you have cheaper petrol to spend. But the thing is that it's illegal to store petroleum product in your house.
Yeah,
Oh,
it is.
I didn't know that.
Regardless.
Is it illegal? Who
Oh,
knows?
no, I didn't know.
Well, if nobody
don't
catches
get
you, it's
caught.
fine, lah. But if
How
catch
come
fire,
you
and
know,
something happens,
Junho?
too bad.
Is it because you attempted it before?
Huh? No,
How come you
it's
know?
a don't think it's
Because-
flammable.
Oh.
Oh.
Sometimes because you attempted it before and then I caught, that's why.
Yeah, you can make bombs. You can make bombs and throw at people.
Yeah.
So
But
anyway, it is true.
yes.
Things are cheap, used to be cheaper, and things keeps going up. It is true, but that doesn't mean you're going to spend all and then how you're going to live tomorrow.
Obviously, she's not gonna do that, right? But anyway, the thing is that I
Yeah
realized,
lah,
okay, there's a reason. It's very how should I put it? You know, okay, so in case for our audience, in case you still haven't guessed what we're talking about yet, we're just basically talking about inflation. Okay, inflation. But okay, inflation has always been with us, right? More or less. And we have always said that the reason why putting your money in the bank doesn't work is because the value of your money actually depreciates over time, and the interest that the bank gives you cannot match up to the speed at which your money is depreciating, right? So but why is it? But if you realize, you see online all that, you realize that now everyone is talking about inflation, even though inflation has always been a part of our lives. But so why is it now that people suddenly take such a big interest in it? Over to our panel expert, Junho.
Okay, now inflation.
Like why? Like why suddenly? Because it's true, man. It has always things that the last time
inflation-
ice cream only 10 cents, now it's what?
I mean, it's true. Inflation is part and parcel of this capitalism.
Yeah, but now how come suddenly now
Right.
everybody's talking about it?
Yeah, I get to that, but let's talk about in normal days and those things, we actually need inflation. Okay, the economy will need inflation because things need to eventually inflate, but there will be a healthy inflation about the central bank or the government likes inflation to be around 1 to 2%. Because if things gets more expensive, then it will spur people to spend. Because if if you think about it, if things gets cheaper going forward, then I was like, why do I want to spend today when things is cheaper tomorrow? Then I'll rather spend tomorrow. So in order to spur people to spend, they want to have a healthy inflation of 1 to 2%. So that people, like what Rachel said, I might as well spend today rather than spend tomorrow because tomorrow is going to cost me more. So small inflation is what is to spur people to spend. But at the moment, everybody is talking inflation because inflation has gone up so high. Okay, in Singapore, it has got. If you just look at eggs that Douglas talked about, it's almost doubled over the last 1 year.
It has more than doubled within the last 6 months.
Okay,
So basically, you're saying that the reason why everybody is talking about it now is because
and then gasoline
of
has
this
gone up
huge
so.
jump, is it?
Diesel and gasoline has gone up so much. It basically has, I don't know, gone how many percent. And the reason for this, okay, the pandemic was part of the reason that the inflation came in because the supply chain was disrupted and a lot of places we had difficulty getting certain products. So remember initially there was an inflation of toilet paper. Remember when the pandemic first started, people were rushing for toilet paper and then couldn't find toilet paper, and then prices of toilet paper just went up. That was because of supply disruption. Or actually, that's not supply disruption. It's just a spike in demand where supply couldn't catch up. Then subsequently, there was a supply disruptions because of COVID. Places were locked down. But the worst thing that actually happened, excuse me, was the Ukraine war. We talked about the Ukraine war previously, and we said, don't you ever think the Ukraine war has no impact on us? Okay, and we know that some people in some other channels that say that, oh, it's too remote. No, it's not remote.
Well,
It's
look at what's happening now, people.
and it has two big things, and the biggest inflation for everybody in the world at the moment is energy inflation and food inflation. All the others, yeah, the prices is going up, but nothing is just flying up like crazy on prices other than food and energy. That Ukraine war disrupted the whole food distribution chain because Ukraine is a major food producer. It produced a whole chunk of wheat for the world. And a lot of this wheat actually go to the Middle East, go to Europe. At the same time,
It's wheat.
what did I
Not
say?
wheat. Wheat.
Okay.
It's not wheat, it's wheat.
I
Okay.
heard weed, WEED, and I was thinking, what
Okay,
type
so
of
it's not marijuana. Okay.
Wheat. You know,
Okay.
the grains wheat, not weed, not the grass weed. Okay.
And there's a pipeline that transport oil through Ukraine to Europe, and with Russia. Did I say Europe? No, from Russia to Europe, and gas as well. I don't know what I said. I said something else differently just now, right?
Brain
just-
fog. It's okay. Brain fog.
And because Russia invaded Ukraine, there's this whole disruption in the supply of energy in terms of oil and gas to Europe because people are unhappy that Russia invaded Ukraine. So there's a lot of, like, the US banned Russian oil, and Europe decided to stop buying certain Russian oil. So suddenly there's a scarcity of energy to Europe. So Europe is also sucking up other sources of energy from somewhere else. As a result, prices of energy has gone up because of that war and the shift in supply of oil and gas to Europe to keep them having enough energy. It disrupted a lot of the oil supply. Of course, Russia now have a lot of excess oil and gas, And in order to move their supply of energy and fuel, they sell at a discount. And who's buying it? China and India. But still, it's not enough. Then after that, even though China had a lockdown because of COVID and all that stuff, it's not stopping the shortage of oil that is needed to go to Europe and to the West. So because of that, it's driving energy prices up. So all of us, as a result, are experiencing this whole energy inflation as well as food inflation. So just simply because of Ukraine, which is in partly in Europe, partly in the Middle East, got invaded, all these things happen. And now is a result of what is happening. So inflation is going to continue. And today, the World Bank just officially announced that they are forecasting the world economy is going to slow down. It's not going to grow as quickly as initially said earlier in the year. And then the OECD, I think it's can't remember. OECD stands for it's the World Economic Cooperation's Development Body or whatever.
Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development.
Yeah, for the whole world, also say that the world economy is going to slow and it's going to likely grow at 3%. The World Bank says 2.9% versus initially they say it's going to be 4% something. So they are now saying it's going to slow down. And in certain factions of a lot of central banks are really saying it is going to, a lot of places is going to slow down and recession is almost inevitable for some countries. And they are really talking about potential recession in the US. And in many, many other countries, they say that recession is almost inevitable. So things are slowing. So that's inflation. Why is Denise having that funny look? I can't hear her. Denise,
Yeah,
I can't
she's
hear you.
muted.
I have muted myself because just now my mic is not in its original place since I changed the venue today. So it's a bit like wonky. And also my face was because you said that some countries like cannot escape recession. Then I was like, that's kind of sad for them. Okay,
Yeah.
but anyway, yes, the reason why everybody's talking about inflation, even though it has been a part of our life for so long, the reason why everybody's talking about it now is because the inflation is thunderous volumes. Thunderous volumes plus
So how does inflation and recession relate?
no, but by right, usually I don't know. I don't now it's special times, but they say usually inflation is when the economy happens when the economy is doing well. Usually.
Inflation happens when an economy is doing well, right?
Usually,
not doing
yeah.
well.
Is it, but
Really?
this time around it's going to be shit because I don't know, that's
No,
what I read
you
somewhere.
know,
It says that inflation
Okay. But Douglas, you
his
say
brain
that
is
why
not
is
working
there
today.
going to be
His brain is
recession?
not
Don't you think?
working.
yeah, my brain fog is terrible. Okay, I realized
Hey,
I realized
Rachel,
Douglas brain fog.
the speed
Who has
of my
leftover
thought
brain
has,
fog?
the
Rachel.
speed of my thought has
Why? What happened?
slowed down.
Rachel, you're from the bank. You were from the bank. So how does inflation
Yeah.
impact?
Rachel, you're the only one that's functioning properly today.
Yeah. So how
Really?
does
But Rachel
inflation?
left the bank 5 years ago.
because no, because Douglas has
Rachel,
brain
riding a
okay,
fog.
bicycle.
forget now.
It's
Shubho
like
has
riding a
leftover
bicycle.
brain
You don't
fog.
forget.
Okay.
I
Let
guess
me just
the rules of the economy she won't forget, like how things happen and why things happen. So yes,
how does
on to our
inflation
panel
relate?
expert number 2, Rachel. What do you think?
How does inflation relate to recession? Is
Makes
there a
recession
correlation?
worse, It makes recession worse, isn't
Okay,
it?
is it okay? Maybe I ask the question differently. Does inflation or recession cause each other? Are they correlated?
Not necessarily. Not
Not
necessarily.
not
but it
necessarily,
may.
right?
Yeah.
But in May.
But
She
it
said but
may,
in
one
May.
may lead to another. So there's the possibility that it may inflation may lead to recession, but it doesn't mean that when there's always inflation, there's always a recession.
Mm. But
Yeah,
inflation
that
also
was
has got to inflation has also got to do with a surplus of cash in the system, right? When you have too much money chasing after too little goods.
Does it happen? I don't know. I'm totally like
so
lost
I don't
here.
know. Yeah,
Then
I that's too technical for me.
because the US
Oh no! Our
because the
members are
US
down. Members are down.
no the US was pumping a lot of money into the economy to attempt to kickstart it, right? Post pandemic.
Because they're
So
printing so much
and
money.
they were like printing money like
They
nobody's
were
business,
printing
and they were just
money. They were printing money like it's photostatic paper, you know. They think it's
and then they were like
photocopy,
giving
you
out,
know.
and then during COVID they were just like handing out cash and cash and cash and cash, lots and lots and lots and lots of cash, and it was not supported by very much.
It was not backed with
And
the
then
amount that it should be backed with.
yeah, so there was it's like a perfect storm, you know. On one hand, the US. No, I'm just thinking about it. On one hand, the US was putting a lot of cash into the system. Okay, and then and then of course through COVID, because like time Chun-Ho was explaining earlier, okay, the supply chain disruption, the production disruptions and all that, and then that caused a shortage of products. Okay, so on one hand you have lots of cash in not only in the US, but I think around the world the governments were attempting to save the population by giving cash. And then there was shortage of products and services. So there was already a lot of money chasing after very little goods, and there was there were delays because of supply chain as well, logistics and all that. And then suddenly you have Ukraine coming in, which then created a whole new disruption as far as the balance of the system was concerned, and like Chuno was saying, then shortage of fuel led Europe to look for alternative fuels, and these alternative fuels, which were supposed to come to be supplied to the rest of the world, is now short because it's going to Europe, and then there's all this money floating around, and because of the shortage, okay, even though there's a surplus of cash, the economies cannot grow, and the war and all that contributed to it. And now the US is attempting to reverse what's happening with too much cash in the system by increasing interest rates. And interest, okay, so interest rates is used to regulate the amount of cash in the system, because when interest rates are low, people will borrow money, right? Because when interest rates are low, people will borrow money because money is cheap, right? We talk about cost, price, and value of money. So when money is cheap, because interest rates are low, people will borrow, okay, to fund whatever, especially businesses, to fund whatever it is they want to fund. Because interest rates low, you can get you can generate returns that are higher than interest rates, then you generate a profit. So the governments will like the US will increase interest rates, because then it makes borrowing more expensive. Okay, when it's more expensive to borrow money, then people, because the thing is now, for the same amount of money you borrow, you pay more interest. Then whatever money you make, and the margins are not always very high, the cost of that money will negate whatever margins there may be in whatever investment. Okay, so it reduces the return on investment. So that's that. So inflation is used to regulate the amount of money that's in the market. Okay, which then
Interest rate.
so interest rates go up, less money chasing products, it should bring or slow inflation down. Okay, so that's the theory. But now what's interesting is So the US is doing that, but when the US raises interest rates, it also impacts the rest of the world. And there are other factors. So that's why I'm talking about the perfect storm. There are other factors like the Ukraine war, which is the supply. Okay, so we're under normal circumstances when the supply of products and services are on a regular base, are normal. So when you increase in interest rates, you can temper. You may not stop, but you may temper or slow down inflation that's occurring, because there's the constant supply of products and services. Okay, but we are actually coming out of COVID right now, and we have not actually recovered yet our entire supply chain system. And then of course there's China, okay, and Taiwan, and who are major producers of electronics and all that, which are experiencing their shutdowns and things they were not prepared for with COVID, with their zero COVID policy and everything. So that so that all these things that's going on in the world, and the US is attempting to increase interest rates, okay, to slow the inflation down. But even though they slow they slow down the supply of money or the circulation of money in the system, but it's not changing the shortage of products. So inflation will continue, and inflation will continue because the products are stuck. Okay, there's a huge chunk, okay, from Russia and Ukraine, which is stuck, and then the rest is being redistributed. And then there's China that's also stuck, and then the rest are and the stuck is stuck. You know, we just can't even get things. We just don't have enough components to make electronics. Okay, there's nowhere else to go to manufacture because all the manufacturing plants take time to build and lots of investment to put up those manufacturing plants, and then takes time to get up to speed. And you suddenly cut that down, it's like cutting off an arm. So it doesn't solve the shortage of products and services with the flow of money in the system, and then US attempting to increase in interest rates, which affects everybody else. So imagine this: it doesn't solve the supply problem. Okay, it doesn't solve the demand problem. It doesn't solve, and they're attempting to temper the cash problem, and they try, so they'll keep increasing interest rates, but it doesn't solve the problem of prices going up. So it's like now you have interest rates which are going up and prices which are going up, and then the supply of products which is not going up.
But that is so US, right?
Well, wait, pause.
But that's so US, right? They do a lot of stuff
It is.
help
But I have something to add to that. I mean, inflation, if is being controlled properly, shouldn't lead to recession. If you're able to control inflation, you can manage inflation in a controlled manner. Rightfully, it shouldn't bring it to recession. The problem if inflations go crazy, and that's what the US Federal Reserve or the central bank doesn't want. Remember when the war broke out in Ukraine, and then the sanctions immediately was applied to the Russia, and then Russian inflation went sky high, and people are like, their money literally, the rubles today versus tomorrow, the amount of things they can buy changed drastically. What they can buy the following day suddenly was 10% less, not 10% less, 20-30% less. So people were just scrambling to spend the money. So when inflation goes,
like Rachel.
Spending the money. Yeah, that's where that came from. See, spend the money now.
When what do they call it? When inflation runs amok or runs overheated, people will
crazy.
People will just look at it and say, I'd rather spend my money. Now, if you spend your money and then you buy things because you're worried that tomorrow the things is going to be, your money is going to buy less things, you actually will spend it today. But the thing is, if tomorrow your income is not going to get back to the same level of what you have now, because inflation, the problem with inflation going up too fast is that your salary is not catching up with inflation. That's the worst part. So the next month you're getting even less money. Then you cannot. Then if this compound onwards, suddenly everybody will run out of money. And when everybody run out of money, people will stop spending.
Recession.
So the strategy.
Wait, Douglas. So people will run out of money, and when people run, that's where the recession will come in. Because when that happens, it will fall off a cliff, and things will just slow because people run out of things, no money to spend already. Because people are just worry and spend first, and then subsequently nothing to spend. It will just fall off a cliff, and
Yeah,
that's
but
what the Federal Reserve is trying to do. They want to avoid from happening because that happened before in Venezuela. The inflation run wild, and then the money becomes so worthless. The whole economy just went into recession, and then it took so long for them to recover, and they only recovered because they managed to have oil to sell. Then subsequently, when there was people stopped buying oil from them because of some political issues, suddenly they went back into a slum
Recession
again.
again.
Yeah, it is. I mean, some of these countries basically survive on oil. So that's what the United States Federal Reserve is trying to tame. Avoid having the inflation runs too high, too fast. So they're trying to tame it down. And of course, like Douglas said, the way that the US try to tame inflation is adjusting the interest rates.
I think this is in their track record lah. Whatever they do, usually most of the time it backfires. So I don't know why they still try to do something about stuff. They would
it
do
is
the world a favor
so it is
by.
it is very knee jerk. It is very knee jerk reaction.
Yeah, so the best thing they can do for the world is just stay still and stop doing shit.
Cannot because cannot.
When they go into a recession, I tell you, because US is the world's largest economy, when they go into the recession, the rest of the world will suffer.
It's a lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
Both are evil, but it's a lesser of two evils. So it's like you eat shit or you eat shit, right? Then it's which shit you want to eat. That's all. You still have to eat shit, you see, because both options
Is
are
it 100
shit.
grams or is it 300 grams? So I choose 100 grams of shit.
But the thing is this, okay? The way to combat inflation, we know the way to combat inflation, okay, is to invest, right? It's not to keep cash, because the value of cash depreciates over time. Simply by the definition of inflation, the value of cash depreciates over time. That means it loses value. So the way to beat inflation is to convert money from cash into an asset that will retain value. Then it's just what that asset is. So
faster than inflation.
in Russia, like Chun was saying, right, when the ruble was dropping, right? Okay, everybody went to, I think a lot of them. So there was a joke, right? They all went. A lot of them attempted. The people who had money attempted to go and buy a lot of branded products because branded products will still be worth more than
over time.
Yeah, over time, because branded products, by nature
It's
of
like
the brand,
limited Rolex, that kind of thing.
yeah.
No, because it's true. I mean, if your money is like
It's true.
dropping in value so quickly, you rather go and buy this Chanel bag, or you buy this I don't know, one of the Hermes bag or
No,
whatever.
not Hermes, Birkins.
Birkin, yeah, Birkin is by Hermes. Yeah. You buy all these things, and eventually, when things kind of stabilize already, you sell it out. You can get back all the money.
Yeah, which would be more than the whatever ruble. If you kept it in cash, the ruble is gone. No value.
So basically, you are going to put it into something that will grow faster than the inflation rate.
Yes.
No, I mean not go. So this is a keep money strategy. Okay, even if it does not. Okay, so in a desperate situation like what happened to Russia, right? You cannot go out and evaluate. Okay, is this property good, or should I buy gold because it's going up? So
I should just try to keep the value of my money.
Yeah, so it's how to protect the value of the cash, which is to convert what's the fastest way is to buy all these things which will
10,000
retain
Birkins
value.
bags.
Hey, they could, okay? I think they could.
I'm saying they could, but then again, would they gain value?
So,
but probably Birkins bags also
No,
not.
it may not gain value, but it doesn't lose. So it doesn't. It will not lose value that the ruble does.
I get what you mean. But then again, I don't think there's 10,000 Birkins bags to be bought. It's very limited.
Yeah, but having said that, so that's one way, and that's how I actually try to say. But of course, in times like us in Singapore now, we actually have an option to evaluate things because we are the Singapore dollar is not just
Not yet.
at the moment. You can think of ways to put your money somewhere that it will at least retain its value or you will grow over time. I mean, you have to think longer term, 5 to 10 years time, what is the investment that will actually keep its value or even grow better than the inflation? Rather than just because inflation go up, then I do nothing. You need to think about it, how you're going to protect your money. You have to put your money somewhere else, it will continue to grow faster than inflation.
And the strategy, the main strategy is not to keep cash. Fundamentally, it's not to keep cash. But it doesn't mean go and buy 10 eggs today because tomorrow you can only buy 4. No, don't buy eggs.
Buy Birkin's bag.
So the strategy is to buy something that will retain value, or convert the cash into something that will retain value, even if it does not grow. That's the keep cash strategy.
And I'm going to quote somebody that everybody will know, Elon Musk. He actually said this to a lot of people. Okay, when there's a risk of inflation, the best way to put your money is in equities.
Why?
He said that. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought he would say put it in the Tesla.
Well, he didn't say put it in the Tesla, just put it in the equities because if you
Tesla
put
is
it
the
in
equity?
the company will continue to grow. If you put it in a good company, a profitable company, eventually the company will generate value, and the company will grow, and you will bring back value. So he's talking in terms of putting into a company of value and not just any equities go on. It's just some kuchikurak
Specifically Tesla equities lah.
Okay, so that's what he said lah. But having said that, I also want to let everybody knows that, like Douglas say, the US is fighting inflation with increase in interest rate. So they are trying to tame inflation using interest rate. So to get people to not borrow so much to spend money, making it difficult to get access to easy money. And because of that, actually a lot of the places in the world may not be following, okay? But the European Union, the ECB has already decided that they also want to increase interest rate to tame inflation. But I've read some of the other countries in Southeast Asia, they are not increasing interest rates so quickly yet.
But they will be, right, at the end of the day.
They will be if eventually if inflation continues to run wild, they will have no choice but to increase interest rate. But at the moment, they're also worried. A lot of people, countries, and especially developing countries in Southeast Asia, they are worried about the interest rate is going to create a recession. So if they increase interest rate too fast, it's not going to get people, because they just came out, almost coming out of a pandemic, and suddenly I increase interest rate, and then suddenly people are not spending. It can easily fall into recession too. They want to get people to spend, so they don't want to increase so quickly. But the US inflation rate is actually running higher, faster than a lot of the world, and European Union as well, because they are directly impacted by the war. Southeast Asia is not so directly impacted by that war, but slowly feeling it already. So the inflation is going up because we already can see in energy as well as food prices going up. So if eventually the interest rate increase is going to come. Now, Singapore, however, is in a very unique position. For those of you who are in the audience and listening, I'm talking specifically to Singapore. Singapore interest rates is not being used to tame inflation. Singapore do not adjust its interbank borrowing rate as a monetary policy. However, Singapore's interbank interest rates kind of follows the US interest rate. So when the US interest rate rises, Singapore interest rate will rise. So that is the way Singapore's generally works in terms of interest rate. So when the US continue to increase interest rates, Singapore will follow suit. And already the US has already increased its interest rate from initially during the pandemic about close to 0%. It has increased to 0.75%, and is due to increase another 0.5% in June and likely another 0.5% in July. And by the end of July, it should go up to about 1.75, and they already plan to increase interest rates by the end of 2022 to about 2+%, somewhere in between 2 to 3%. Even if it's going to be higher than the 2% inflation that they want to bring down to, they will do it because they want to bring inflation all the way back down to 2%, and they will bring it up to 2+%, close to 3% if necessary, to bring inflation back down to 2%. So interest rate is going to go up. And because of that, Singapore interest rate will go up. It is not a if or whether it will. It will happen. It's a matter of when.
And how
so
much?
And how much? Okay, interest rates are really slowly creeping up in Singapore. So it will make borrowing a little more tougher or more expensive. So by the end of the year, I don't know what interest rate is going to look like in Singapore. I don't even know what the mortgage rate will look like. Maybe you go up to 2.5% mortgage rate. I don't know. Before the pandemic, when I actually was before the pandemic, when I was actually looking at repricing my mortgage, I got it fixed at 2.5% just 2 years before the pandemic, because I knew before the pandemic happened, the US was already increasing interest rates. So I wanted to lock in a rate so that I don't subject myself to increasing interest rate. So I actually lock it in, and I had to lock it at 2.5. And then after that, when the pandemic happened, it really fell. And then immediately after a year of the pandemic, I immediately repriced it again, and I managed to get a 1.2% interest rate on my mortgage.
Is it locked?
Do you
It's
fix it?
locked.
Yeah.
I fixed it. But if it's going to
No,
happen, my
no.
fix is going to be 3 years. So after the 3 years lap, I mean, I'm going to relook at it again. So
No, it's better than two, because after 3 years, who knows, better than paying additional 2% every year.
yeah. So I don't
Yeah.
know
Also
how
better
it
than
will be.
floating.
I don't know how it will be, but eventually interest rate is going to go up. So anybody that's looking at borrowing money, you have to rethink, or you want to look at restructuring your loans and whatever. This is the time to do so before the interest rates goes any higher.
Mm.
So you
Every
should.
every day time is passing. Ding, 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 the count, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock.
Every day time is passing. Every day time is passing. What are we doing with that time? Just loafing
Tick tock, tick tock,
around.
tick tock, and then as you tick tock, your cash, tick, 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 tick,
The
tick,
value,
and
the
then
value, the value of your
Spend,
dollar.
spend now, spend now.
Spend now. Okay, Rachel, next time you just pay now me whatever you want me to help you spend. Your mobile number, pay now me. Yeah. I will. No service charge. No service charge. No problem.
and this, I think I'm actually not sure how many people are besides talking about it are actively doing something about it. And if for whoever is not doing anything about it to protect the value of their cash, it's going to be painful. I think it's going to be very, very painful.
Yeah, and then you have been listening to us talk about it so long, because at the very, very few beginning episodes before this inflation came, we already said what? When is the best time to invest? Yesterday. Yesterday is the best time to
I've been
invest,
saying
right?
this for the longest time.
Yeah, and then if y'all listen and still never do, then it's too bad then. It's too bad, okay?
Yeah,
Invest is a choice. And we are giving away free information here from three gurus, three panel experts. We have 3 panel experts here with us.
Yeah, so for whoever is comfortable getting a paycheck, not that there's anything wrong with it. Okay, who's getting a paycheck, that same paycheck is going to get smaller and smaller. And
Yes, that's right.
it's unlikely that whoever's issuing that paycheck is going to make it any bigger to compensate for
Yeah, ask me about it. I will know. my increase is at 1%, way below the standard inflation rate. Okay.
Okay,
And
we've got
Yeah.
the we got a question from
Yes, we know. I know. I saw it already.
yeah, but before I answer that, I just want to highlight one more thing for those in Singapore. If we talk about energy inflation at the moment, and I'm just going to highlight this. Energy prices is going to continue to go up. I don't know until when, until the Ukraine war is probably over or something else
Can
happens.
it just be over already?
I don't think so. It's going to be so fast. And if any of you
No.
have not converted from Singapore Power electricity to one of the retailer and fix your price and buy a fixed price for at least a year or two to lock in that price, you may want to think about doing it now, because energy prices is going to continue to go up, and you will subject yourself to a floating rate based on Singapore Power. You are going to pay through your nose.
Until your
Yeah,
nose
thank you
is
for
no
reminder.
more.
Mine is up for renewal. I forgot to renew.
Renew
Unbelievable.
and
There are
lock
people
in
still
a fixed price.
still
Otherwise,
haven't.
the energy price keep going up.
Yeah.
Oh no,
There are
you're just going to
people
eat
that
more
still
shit.
hasn't sold over
My
yet,
doctor
man.
say eat more shit.
Yeah, no, but there are people who haven't
Okay,
sold over
okay.
yet, man. So weird. You haven't sold over yet.
I sold over already, but
But
it's
it's
due
due for
for
renewal.
renewal,
Okay,
the
fine.
contract.
Wait,
Yeah,
quick,
yeah.
quick. Okay, let's answer the question. We're running out of time too.
Are we running out of
Okay.
time? We'll just carry on. Okay, so basically we have a question on the host. We have a question from Mr. Arnold Lim. If interest rates in Singapore rise in SPOR, I assume he means Singapore, rise along the way, do you think it will affect property prices here because the cost of borrowing will be high? Let me direct this question to our panel experts. Mr. Chun Ho. Mr. Chun Ho, what do you have to say about this?
Okay, Douglas, you want to say something about this, or
That's
you?
what I thought you said you want to answer.
Okay.
No, I think this is a multifactorial,
Okay, so
multi-departmental
Douglas will cover
answer.
a few of the factorial part, and then after that, Junho will take some of the other factorial part.
Okay, here's my perspective, being having been a property investor before. That sounds like expert, right? Property prices, okay, I think they're not direct, they're okay, so there's causation and correlation. Okay, and I think the importance is to differentiate between some causation, which means that A causes B, versus correlation, where A affects B. Okay, or A has some effect on B. Okay, which are two different things. So interest rates and property prices is not causation; it is correlation. Okay, but okay, there are a lot of factors involved, and as far as property, what causes property prices to go up? Okay, so it's simply a demand and supply issue conversation. Okay, and the availability of cash makes it easy for prices to go up. Okay, for certain, right? Because if there's demand and supply, if there's a lot of supply and not a lot of demand, even if there is easy supply of cash, property prices will not go up. It's simple. It's simple math. If there's a lot of supply, there's a lot of supply, not a lot of demand. Even though money is cheap, because there's a lot of supply, which means there's money chasing a lot of supply. The prices is not going to drive prices up. Okay, what drives prices up is when supply is limited and there is high demand. Okay, that's what drives prices up. Okay,
I give you an example.
That's fundamental.
Let me just give you an example of that. It is the same situation in just across the causeway. Okay, across the causeway. At one point, money was cheap. It was easy to borrow money, but because there was oversupply of properties in Malaysia, properties plunged. Property prices in
somebody's fan. Wait, pause. Chuno, somebody's fan is on. It goes when the fan blows at you.
No, don't have already.
Not me.
Yeah, now don't have already. Just
Is
now.
it me?
Yeah, it's still a bit.
Is it me? I try to mute.
No, it's not. It's not Denise.
It's not
Is it
me.
me?
Still have, right? Still have, right? Just now when I mute, still have, right?
Okay. Anyway, yeah. So Chunho, carry on first.
Yeah. So Douglas is.
It might be Chunho.
The most important thing is supply and demand. Okay, so that was just an example in Malaysia because it's oversupply of properties. So no matter how cheap the money is, it's just not going to cut it.
So okay, so in this case, if
No, okay. So
interest
anyway,
rates,
come back. So come back to come back to the question, right? So okay. So we need to establish a foundation. Okay. Demand and supply. Okay. And of course, it's also not across the board because there are certain properties that are more demanded because they are more accessible versus other properties which are not so high in demand. So even within a country, the different types of property in Singapore, HDB versus private condos versus landed, also got different demand and supply situation. Okay, so that's foundational. Then the second thing is what creates the supply and what creates the demand. Okay, and so supply is how much land the government is releasing. So we look at master plan, right? We look at master plan. We look at how aggressive the government is in releasing land that can be developed, and then the developers who are willing to put in money, and then HDB which is being developed, and also that creates the supply of property. And then we look at the demand side. Who is buying all this property? Okay, okay. So across the board, okay, your residential, industrial, business, whatever it is. And then who's buying? Okay, then you look at who are the buyers of this property. Then are there more buyers than there are supply? Okay, then from that we will be able to assess whether the prices will go up or not. And then the money conversation comes in. So if interest rates goes up, it means that it's more expensive to borrow money, right?
which
And
which may reduce the demand,
which may reduce the demand, which means that prices may be affected. But the other thing to consider is what does interest rate impact? Interest rates. So it's not only buying new properties. So people flip properties and all that, right? They buy. It's not only new properties, but people who have investment properties. What do these investment properties do? They are rented out. Okay, but whatever the case is, okay, from a mortgage loan perspective, the mortgages are renewed every 2 years, every 2 or 3 years, depending on whatever it is. So for investment properties, what is it doing? Okay, most of the time people rent it out. Otherwise, it's sit idle. They continue to pay mortgage, right? Then it's whether rental can keep up with the mortgage payments. Okay, and if we are heading towards a recession and there's less supply of money and it's inflationary, okay, so what will property owners do? Because if they have to pay more interest, if they have to pay more interest for their loans, then they will push up the rental, right? Then it depends on how much demand for what type of rental property. So people may downgrade. Okay, instead of renting the condo, they rent HDB. Instead of having their own room, they will rent 2 rooms. Instead of the Singaporean who's considering moving out of the home, okay, to rent a room or to rent may continue to stay with the parents, okay, because money supply. Okay, so rentals, so there's only so much they can push rentals up. Okay, and if you cannot push rentals up, and the rental is not enough to cover the mortgage, and then there's all this inflation going on, then the same amount of money that they have, they need to spend on other things, which is becoming more expensive. So the amount of cash that can be allocated to a non-performing asset, because cannot collect enough rental, or even collect rental, may not be able to cover, then they need to top up. Okay, so you see how everything just
kind of correlated, maybe not cost, but it's related.
Okay, it doesn't cost, but correlated, and then there's going to be people who will let go because they cannot maintain, and then if they let go, okay, this fire sales, okay, they become desperate seller, then and so there's a chain effect. Okay, and so we look at the macroeconomics. Okay, it will go a certain way. Okay, of course, there are people who will say that we can find pockets of this and pockets of that. Yeah, if you find pockets of this and pockets of that, then it depends on whether you can find the pockets of opportunity that will outperform the market, that will outperform the inflation, that will have all this demand and all that. Okay, and I think it's tough and it's risky. Okay, so and I think that the thing that between Chun Ho and I, our strategy always is, okay, we're going to go into an investment. we must first know how we're going to exit. Okay, and that exit is going to be profitable. And if we can't figure out how to exit, given and personally right now, looking at what's happening right now, it's very difficult to predict and to see how to exit an investment, especially like property, because it is very, very illiquid. Okay, and this is for both residential. This is for both residential and commercial properties. Because we also remember post-COVID, there are a lot of businesses that are restructuring. And then in a recession, if a recession is coming and everybody's talking about recession coming, what do companies do during a recession? They cut costs and they look for and they look for greater efficiency, right? You know? And they're going to cut costs. They're not going to be renting at big offices. They're not going to be spending money on all these. They're going to cut business expenses. They're going to cut head count, and then there's going to be a recession. There'll be going to be layoffs, and then so it's it just spirals. Okay, so it's not. I think it's not as simple as is it going to affect property prices? Because I don't think it is about the interest rates. The interest rates will be a factor, but there are a lot of other things that's going on around at the macroeconomic level that will contribute to how property prices are going to look. And it personally I don't know, like, Junho, over to you.
Yeah. All I just want to add is the reason why property prices is going up, which is actually I didn't even expected it will go up this much during the pandemic. Was I actually thought during the pandemic, because people are leaving Singapore and expat have left Singapore and go home and all those stuff, there will be less demand for properties. But I was actually wrong, because there was a undersupply of properties because people left Singapore, and then there were all these foreign workers that's not available to do constructions. A lot of properties development was slowed down. So a lot of properties was planned to be available in the market weren't available. Yeah. So there's demand, but there's a supply shortage.
Correct.
Like HDB, BTO, they were delayed for a year. I don't know how many years, I can't remember. But there's a lot of private properties that's also not available. At the same time, even locally, Singaporeans decided to move out the house because people are working from home. And home, like a family of 5, and then like both the adults working at home and then the kids are studying. It was just too much in the house to work from home or study from home. People started to, those that are older, the kids who are older, they started to rent out places so that they do co-living or whatever. They moved out. So that kind of that actually spurred the rental market. And because the rental market went up, it actually create an income for property owners to have generate income to cover their mortgage. And that's why there's suddenly a demand for properties, because there's rental demand. If there's a rental demand, then it makes sense for me to own a property because rent it out. So that's why people started buying property, and it was cheap at the time. Interest rate was low. People were just buy more, and then there was this sudden increase of demand while there's an undersupply of properties. So it went up, and that's what the government was so worried about, because they were worried what happens when the pandemic is over, interest rate starts going back up. Are these people able to maintain it? Are they able to continue to pay the mortgage? Because if interest rate goes up and then the rental cannot cover, are they over leveraged? If the person that bought the property is over leveraged, that's why the government was so worried, and they keep warning and warning and warning. And recently, they also I think it was yesterday, they announced that they're going to release another 26% more of land for private property development and all that stuff. But even they release more, it doesn't mean that there'll be increased properties so quickly in the market.
Yeah, you take time to build, and
but the thing is,
come in to build.
But the thing is, it's a matter of time. So then it becomes a matter of time. Okay, on when the issue. So it's not like the supply is fixed. Okay, and when they decide that, hey, is certain percentage is going to be released for development and all that, then you can already predict that, okay, it's going to take how much time, and by a certain time, then there's going to be a certain supply. Okay, so if you're buying now, based on a shortage at high prices, and prices are going up suddenly, okay, so this is always a cyclical thing, right? Suddenly when the supply situation changes, right? At some point, all these properties, even though, okay, whether it's take 5 years, 10 years, whatever, and it's not going to take so long. Okay, but that supply situation is going to flip. So if you buy on a low supply, high demand, means you're paying a high price, okay, at whatever interest rates, and suddenly there's a supply increase, then what's going to happen to price? It's going to drop. So you paid the high price for a short supply, low supply, but supply goes up, you may not be able to exit at the same price that you entered that investment. I think that's so ultimately, big picture, it is supply demand situation, short, medium, and long term. The problem is this, okay? So when we get in Singapore, when you get into a property investment, okay, because of all the tax structures, right? The exit, the ABs, I don't know all those, whatever it is.
ABSD.
Okay, the buyer stamp duty, the seller stamp duty, and everything else in between, right? Okay, you're basically stuck for a period of 5 years unless you absorb or cut loss based on whatever it is in between.
Yeah.
Okay, so anybody buying now at high rising prices, I'm saying that these rising prices are not going to sustain. Because then the next thing is, when the supply is met, where is the demand going to come from? And we're looking at is the Singapore population going to increase enough to take up and create surplus demand for even the new supply that's coming into the market? Okay, in 2005, okay, there was the Singapore Master Plan that with the IR and all that, where the Singapore government said, okay, 6.5 million. Okay, definitely a lot of supply and a lot of demand and not enough supply. Okay, but with everything that's happening right now, in the direction that we're heading towards tech, which requires a lot less manpower, a lot less labor intensive. Okay, which means that we are attracting high net worth individuals or highly skilled individuals, and we don't need a lot of manpower to do that tech work. Okay, so we're not going to aim for the 6.5 million or 7 million population anymore, are we? I don't know, unless there's something I don't know. Okay, and if there's information on increase of supply, okay, but there's no data on increase of demand or where the demand is going to come from. Now it's just to fulfill demand. It's not new demand, no. It's fulfill existing demand. Okay, where is new demand coming from? I don't know. I don't have. And based on these unknowns, personally, I will not put money in, because then I'm gambling. I'm gambling that, oh, there's going to be this imaginary population that's demand that's going to come in, and I don't know where is it from. I can't deceive myself. Oh, there'll be a buyer. There won't be a buyer. And even the thing is, when supply is sufficient, okay, and people may stop renting. If they're paying rentals that are so high, it might make more sense to buy the property rather than rent the property. Then the rental market is going to go too. Okay.
Yeah, so I just want to
That's
add,
it.
like, just some information for you guys that's out there. The Singapore population actually dropped from 2020, it dropped from about 5.7, it dropped to about 5.4 something in 2021. And I'm not sure if it has gone up. I think it is still about 5.4 or 5.5. So the Singapore population, total population actually has dropped. So it was actually trending up all the while, all the way into 2020, about 5.7, 5.8. It came down. 21, it came down, and then it's still down. So the demand in terms of the population, in terms of the people that's available in the market, Singapore market, that is out there buying, demanding for a housing, residential, or whatever, it has dropped. So unless there is a new plan to increase the population, either by immigration or welcoming a lot of more things to push it all the way back up to 5.8 and 6, it's tough because they release so much properties into the market. I don't know who's going to take it up.
And make babies don't count, Make babies don't count as population growth strategy. It takes 25 years. Okay, in case anybody doesn't know it, okay, population through making babies takes 25 years before that baby becomes eligible to buy a property. And 25 years may not be enough because then they have to save enough money to, okay, unless the parents put in money. Okay, but 25 years, okay, 25 years. And everybody got to make, okay, you want to talk about make millions of babies, okay, everybody got to start.
Very difficult. Very difficult nowadays.
You have 100, okay, so if you have 100,000, if you have a million couples, if you have a million couples, which means 2 million people who make a baby this year, then you will have a million increase in 25 years. That's it. Of a million couples go and make babies this year. Okay, the math is simple. Basically, the math is simple. You just look at the macroeconomic trends. Okay, what is fact and what is interpretation? What is people imagining the future to be versus what is actually going to be? Okay, and if we look at the data, if we look past the stories that are going around about how property is an investment, I think it's time to relook that. Number one, it takes a tremendous amount of money to be deployed to make money. Okay, and today there are lots of alternatives to deploy capital that can get returns in far shorter time frames than property. That's highly liquid versus illiquid property.
I think we are running.
Okay, we are
But
over time,
let
right?
me
Yeah, I think it's time for last words.
Having said that, it's not that if the rental rates, the rental can still cover the mortgage, which means there's still money to be made. Okay, I just want to give you an example. In about when I let go my last property in Singapore, which is in 2015 or there about 2015, it came to a point when rental cannot cover mortgage. My properties in Singapore in 2015, rental couldn't cover mortgage. I have to keep topping up because at the time there wasn't enough people coming into Singapore to rent all the properties in Singapore. People are just pushing rental prices down. All the tenants were just pushing rental prices down. And interest rate were at the time was already coming out of the recession, the global recession, which is the started in 2008. By then, interest rate was really on the rise already in 2015. So mortgage was on the rise and it couldn't cover. So when supply is excessive, I tell you, tenants will have it become a tenants market. The tenants will push down the rental price, and that's where you have to relook at whether your rental property makes sense anymore. Because it's cyclical and there will be a time when it comes. So that's why I can say it's actually like Douglas said, it's a mathematical equation and just have to look at it from a mathematical standpoint. The issue is whether we can forecast it early enough, right, Rachel? She wants to be faster than the people.
Yeah, that was a separate conversation. Denise, I think your mic is muted.
Yes, my mic is muted. Okay, no, I was saying that Rachel wants to spend her money faster than other people also.
Yes, I also want to. I want to do a lot of things faster than other people. So,
Don't
yeah.
we all? Okay. Was that your last
Okay.
word? No, right?
No,
Last
no, no.
words.
Okay, let's do last words. Go.
Go.
Okay, Douglas, you're going. Oh no. Okay, in that case, I'll go first. I just going to make it very simple. Um, Today's topic we talk about inflation, and I just want everybody to be aware that inflation, if it's not controlled and managed properly, and at the moment while all the central banks are working to manage it, just be aware that it is going to impact your money. So think about how you want to place your money to keep its value or grow its value. Because if you don't do anything about it, this inflation is definitely going to eat away at the value of your money. That's all.
Okay. So I think so we talk about understanding the mechanics of money. Okay, in a lot of the work that we do, we talk about understanding the mechanics of the game that we want to play. And if we want to win the money game, okay, the game that we play with money to increase the value of our money, then all the more important it is now to understand the mechanics of money. Okay, the price, the value, and the cost conversation. Okay, how to make money, strategies to make money, strategies to keep money, very important in times of inflation, and strategies to grow money. Okay, and of course, fundamentally understanding, okay, getting the distinctions between money, okay, which is the idea of exchange, cash, which is the liquidity, and currency, how we measure money. Okay, so understand the mechanics. Okay, we've got this is the time to understand the mechanics of money so that you can craft the strategies in order to protect, okay, your financial wealth. Last words. That's it. That's it from me.
Okay, my turn for last words. My
Dennis.
last word is very, very simpler. If you want to understand the mechanics of money, watch Ouch My Money. Like, share, subscribe. Like, share, subscribe. Must do 3 times. Like, share, subscribe. Okay, that's my last words. It's true. I mean, look how much even I learned just from being on the show. Okay,
Okay,
Rachel's
so
turn.
my last words is simply just to take action. And that's something that we have been advocating from the beginning of time, not the beginning of Ouch My Money. So just take action, keep taking action. Yeah, even if there's from no inflation to inflation going so high, for those who haven't taken action yet, do something. Yeah.
Nah, take action, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that is a very good last words. Thank you to all who have watched us today, and thank you all for your questions. We will see you guys 2 weeks later. It's 2 weeks later. Is it 2 weeks later?
Yes, 2 weeks
Yes.
later.
2 weeks later, nothing that's stopping us, right? Okay. So we will see you guys 2 weeks later. Thanks so much for tuning in and for all your questions again. Like, share, subscribe. Okay, I think that's it. We will see you guys 2 weeks later. Bye.